Good evening, Bronco Country. How you doing out there? I'm David Slade, joined by Matt Staffiero. Sort of an impromptu show. Big news today. Russell Wilson has been benched as the Denver Broncos quarterback. If you have not heard that and this is the first you're hearing it, then I don't know what rock that you have been hiding under all day. So it has been all over the local media and everything else here. So Matt, what is your take on it? Were you shocked by the way it came down?
Yes and no. I think, if you've been following us here at Cross Sports Connection for the last, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks, ever since Sean Payton first mentioned the communication issues, it just seems like this has been kind of like a slippery slope. I've highlighted that it feels like there's some kind of constant miscommunication. They're just not on the same page. Is it a relationship issue? Is it, what is the cause of turmoil for, whatever this is that they can't get on the same page? Well, come to find out, through various channels now, it looks like it's over. It is a financial concern. It's over the injury guarantees and things like that. I can say that I'm shocked at the timing, but I felt that it was inevitable that this was going to happen. I think that we've been saying it for a while that I didn't think that Russ was going to be the future. I honestly thought he would get the 2 years, though. I thought they didn't want to go after that. We're hearing reports that, from Diana Rossini that this could end as soon as May or March, excuse me.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it's going to happen March, probably with a post June 1st designation, I would think. So they're allowed to spread that cap hit over 2 years.
Either way, as long as they make their decision before the 5th day of the league year, they're able to split it up. Now, however they want to designate it is entirely up to them. They're going to be able to split it up over 2 years. I think if it's pre-June 1st, they're going to have to eat the cap or the heavier cap this season. What is it? 49, just under 50 million. They have to eat it now. And then the 35 will fall to 2025. But if they do it post June, I believe it flips.
Yep.
I'd have to look back into it.
And Ian Rappaport has reported that there are 2 teams already that, are possible trade destinations, and that's the Tennessee Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. So
I've been hearing Atlanta Falcons since early this morning. As soon as this news broke, that's the team to keep an eye on. They've been rumored to be heavily connected to Justin Fields. If you feel that if we look at it, Russ technically hasn't played bad from an individual standpoint. We can agree on that. Like, you look at the stats, it's not been bad.
Right. Individual stats are good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're a team looking at it as in, hey, I know that he can still perform, it just wasn't a good fit, but I think I can be that fit. I definitely think there's a realm of possibility, but it's going to take hell and high water to get that contract to be movable. You can't restructure guaranteed money. So maybe he agrees to push the no trade clause back not the no trade clause, the injury guarantee back for a trade. Maybe it's something like that to help with ease the cap hit. They can restructure his base salary, but it's only like 16.5 mil that I think it would technically take off of the 2024 cap hit, which I guess is a good chunk if it's 35 million.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be hard for anybody to absorb. So who knows what's going to happen. One thing that surprises me about this whole thing, and I want your opinion on this, Matt, is that Russell Wilson, or at least Sean Payton, is saying that Russell Wilson is your backup quarterback. So now, if you're worried about protecting this $37 million 2025, injury guarantee, why would you even have him as the backup? Because let's say Stidham goes out there and gets hurt. Now you're back in the same situation, and you got Russell Wilson out there. Why aren't they doing this a la Derek Carr and saying, sorry, guy, go home. We don't even want you at the practice facility now.
I mean, there's two lenses you could look at it through. I mean, you could look at it as this is just Sean Payton making, a power, like kind of like a power move, like kind of now you have to sulk in it. You couldn't get it done, so now I'm going to have you sit here and deal with it. And you're a QB2 after. I mean, if we look at the report that Jordan Schultz is throwing out, Russell Wilson's liking everything that comes to do with the Broncos approached him saying either do this, painting the Broncos as a big bad wolf. Is this Sean Payton saying, all right, give us the identity, we'll assume the big bad wolf
Right.
type of role? And is it that? I mean, have we lost our culture? And I mean, we were hoping this was establishing a culture and identity, but it seems like at least for the last 8 weeks now behind the scenes, at least between the Broncos, whether that's including the Walter Penner group, whether that's including George Payton and Sean Payton, whoever on the Broncos side is involved in this, it's definitely created just a mess. So is this the Broncos saying you play victim, we'll treat you like a victim type thing? Or is this more of, like, hey, we're doing you a solid, we're going to keep you here. Whatever, you keep your pride intact.
Yeah.
We know you're not going to play, but we don't want to make you inactive. We want you to collect your game check, whatever. Or is it just to satisfy that something as simple as the NFLPA, like just to keep them off their backs?
Right. Well, and I think a lot of the timing, and this is my opinion. So, just to lay this timeline out for everybody, October 31st is apparently when this started, 2 days after the victory over the Chiefs. The Broncos approached Russell Wilson and said, hey, we want you to push back the uh, the date, the activation date for this medical claim. I think
For a year.
they wanted to push it back a year, and they said that hey, if you don't do it, then we're going to bench you and we'll inactivate you. You know, and Russ called their bluff apparently. Him and his team, and said no, we're not going to do it. I think, and a lot of people are saying, well, why didn't they bench him then? Well, because we were in the middle of a playoff hunt. I mean, and now that we're after, this 3 game losing streak, we're not technically, we're all but eliminated. We have a 3 to 5% chance
Yeah.
to still make it. So I think that management and everybody else said, okay, this is it. Pull the plug on him.
Yeah.
But I'm still baffled about the whole thing of if you're trying to protect this money, why is he your QB2, or are you just blowing smoke? And when it comes game time, we're going to see that Russell's not active, and we're going to have Danucci up there as the QB2.
I mean, Sean Payton did. I mean, that was the report today that it was going to be Russ's quarterback too. Also, I believe in the press conference, correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't say that they were going to bring up Danucci as the emergency quarterback. They were only going to be carrying 2 quarterbacks on game day. So, does that narrative change as we approach game day? Do they happen to promote him to emergency? Do they use one of his promotions? What we don't truly know what it's
Right.
going to look at. It's so fresh, it's so new. They're probably still trying to get, I mean, they have their plan in line, but they're probably just trying to gather their ducks in a row before
Well,
commenting further. This is like ripping the band-aid off way faster than you probably or anyone intended.
right. Nobody intended it to happen this fast. And
No.
you and I have talked before, and you and I have talked about this in private before that, I wouldn't be surprised once the Broncos are out of playoff contention that Russell Wilson is benched.
Yeah, and I highlighted this to us earlier, or to our little group earlier as well. Something changed in. I mean, prior to this change of 8 weeks ago or whatever, right? Before the
Right.
Kansas City game, you have Russell Wilson. You're getting pounded by the Miami Dolphins, and it's not even close. But you keep Russell Wilson in there the entire game.
Right.
You go down a few scores by the Lions, you're getting pulled in garbage time, and Jarret Stidham's coming in right after a blow up. The tides turned in that Detroit game. You felt the chemistry was off. You felt there was a disconnect between Peyton and Russ. It just didn't seem that it wasn't cohesive. It was already rocky, but the last bit of cohesion that was left felt like it dissipated in that game. But it seems like they try to dust it off and say, "Hey, we still got a chance. We're going to ride this out, see if, whatever is going to happen." And now instead of a winning streak, now you're on a 2-game losing streak. It makes sense to pull the plug, give this kid Stidham a chance to see what you have in him. Is 2 games really enough? Is in terms of a sample size? I don't know. But sticking with Stidham really fast. I think that we mentioned this. I mentioned this with someone else I was speaking with today. This has essentially been like a slow development route for Stidham, if you really think about it.
Hmm.
Not only you got the expensive quarterback who's overall, been rumored. Some say he's a great teammate. Some say he's not. Whatever it is, you've got a brand new system being implemented. You have a coach who supposedly went out and got a guy that he believed in, paid him more money than more than most backups make, and said, "I think he's a QB2 trending towards QB1." I mean, you've highlighted how many positive statements Sean Payton has said about Jarret Stidham, and he sat behind Russ and had a full year with no pressure, nothing added on him to sit here and truly learn Sean Payton's system. I mean, this is what we ask for years when it comes to rookie quarterbacks and saying, "Oh, they got to go the development route." Well, you just got a young quarterback, and that's exactly what you've just gone through.
Right. And I did post something earlier that I found some comments that Sean Payton did make about Jarrett Stidham and how highly he felt about Jarrett Stidham, through, scouting him when he was still at Auburn, watching game film from when he's played in the NFL, in college. And he says he really has the skills to possibly be a good NFL quarterback one day. And maybe Sean Payton really believes that and feels that this is the time that I have to see what I have in this guy because
Yeah,
and we talked, and when this first came down, some of the conversation was, and you and I had this conversation briefly. Well, maybe they sort of kiss and make up in the off season, and they come. Russ is back for 2 more
yeah.
years with the rookie, but with all this other stuff that is blowing out there now,
No, it's done.
I don't see Russ coming
No,
back
I
at
don't.
all.
I don't think there's a way to say this is salvageable. I definitely agree with that. I mean, that was my first initial thought was like, hey, they're just preserving it, self-preservation to give them enough time to make a decision. But between what was it, 10 a.m. around that time, Mountain Time, that all of this
Uh
stuff
huh.
started rolling out through this evening. I mean, that has all been shot out the window. That hope is, I mean, for those who were hoping for something like that, I would say is all but gone at this point. So I mean, now
Yeah.
you have to begin looking at what this is going to look like moving forward. We got Stidham for the next 2 games. We just said, I don't know if it's a big enough sample size. There's a lot of routes they can go. One of the big things, a lot of the people who are frustrated or I would say pro Russ fans, they keep going after Sean Payton as a quarterback talent evaluator. Yeah, he's had a couple lower round guys, Ian Book and different things,
Right.
different lower round prospects that he drafted to be, behind Drew Brees. It was never really, hey, I think this guy is going to be a day one starter. And if, maybe even if he did, it was more of long, this is a project and we'll see where this goes. Uh, Good. I mean, many people that I trust have also kind of came to me and talked to me a little bit more about Sean Payton and his way he evaluates quarterbacks. He was a big voice in trying to figure out, they were targeting Patrick Mahomes before he hit the scene. Unfortunately, Kansas City just had beat them to the punch.
Right.
Same thing. Another report was super high on Jimmy Garoppolo. Unfortunately, Saints were in a position to where they couldn't go up and get him, and Patriots beat them to the punch. Also, he's been credited to helping Dallas find Tony Romo. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy has found guys who've been quality starters. I mean,
He, I
yeah.
mean, it
So
just didn't work. And it's like I told Kenny from K&K Sports, and he may be on here shortly to join us. Me and him were talking. It's like I told him, I said, Russell Wilson, I think, can still be good. This system is not a fit for him. Sean Payton is not going to adjust his system for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is also the guy who said, I want to be more like Drew Brees. I want to convert to that style of offense. I want Sean Payton to be my coach. And it didn't work. Russ just could not, you know,
I mean,
Right.
we've seen it.
That's
I
the
mean,
way it's
yeah.
supposed to be run.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, we've heard the I don't know if complaints would be the best word to use, but I mean, we've heard the discontent of Peyton talking leaving the pocket too early, bad
mhm.
communication, this and that. I mean, if we look at the film, he struggles between 13 and 25 yards. There's a struggle there in terms of where the Broncos are targeting on the field. It's just not been efficient. He hasn't been utilizing kind of the mid-range ball very often, and while those splash plays have been fantastic and they've led to some really cool, flashy plays, unfortunately, it's just not a consistent way of production. And you can't constantly throw the ball behind a line of scrimmage and expect that it's just going to constantly lead to an efficient system. Uh, and to your point, yeah, a good coach, should they make adjustments to players? Absolutely.
You're gonna make some adjustments,
Yeah,
but
but
you're
I mean,
not
you're
gonna
not going to
change your
change
whole system
you're
or
not
your
going to change your
identity. Right.
identity. And
Right.
unfortunately, and whether this gets me crucified by the people who like Sean Payton, he's very egotistical. He's very stubborn and he's set in his ways, and he knows and he believes in what he runs, and he feels that it's going to lead to success. And he may not have wanted to change to a Seattle Pete Carroll type offense for Russ. And Russ didn't, like you said, didn't really want to either. I just think there was so many things, so many ways for this to catch fire in a negative manner, and it just with each little poke, the fire just grew bigger and bigger, and now here we are.
Right. All right. I mentioned earlier Kenny from K&K Sports was going to join us, so I'm going to bring him in now. Kenny, thank you for joining Matt and I. No, you got a busy day over there. You just got off a show there at K&K, and you're getting ready to go
show,
back.
and then there's going to be another Broncos show at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, you guys. So when you guys are finished, if you want to head over to us, there's going to be another Broncos show. Different style, I'll say, just for those who are not worried,
Right.
who haven't
I got to
followed.
check on. I texted Kurt earlier. I haven't heard anything.
So,
Just a general check and like, hey man, this is not.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Unfortunately,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you take the sides of who thought where it was going, the bottom line is here we are again without a quarterback, without an identity, and now how many more years of this are we going to go through?
right. And Trevor from Denver Bronco Roundup brings up a good point. He says it's likely going to be this is his thoughts, and I sort of agree with this. Someone along the lines of Winston, or if Stidham does well as the bridge, as these last two games, he may be the bridge with a rookie QB. And these are the guys we've been talking about too, is McCarthy and Jaden Daniels possibly being guys
Yeah.
that'll fit into the Sean Payton system. So,
Absolutely. There was a couple other veteran names that I was told to keep an eye out for. I'll start with the most surprising one, and that is Sam Howell from Washington. It looks like he's going to be on his way out. Um, I've been told that there's some dots maybe to connect there, as well as keep an eye out. And Sam Darnold is another option to maybe keep an eye out. And then lastly, who else was the other one? I just lost it. Remember, Dave? I told you earlier it was Sam Darnold. Oh, Mac Jones
yeah,
out in
Mac
New
Jones,
England
and I
as he's
think
supposed to be phased out.
Tannehill was on that list as well. I believe that you gave to me. So there are going to be people out there, that you can maybe get on a 1 year deal with a second year option and pick up a rookie guy. But Kenny and I have been talking a lot today. Kenny has sort of been on the Russ camp, and Kenny has seen the division in Bronco country between what we call Russ cultists and
Yep.
the haters. So Kenny told me today that he thinks that he has a solution where we can now reunite as Bronco fans and come together. So I told Kenny I would give him the platform here where he could sort of pitch his plan as to how as Bronco fans can reunite as Bronco country.
So thank you for Dave for allowing me to mention this. I think I have the solution, and we all think now everybody in Bronco country believes Russ is now finished in Denver. So my solution is draft that quarterback next year, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whoever Sean Payton's quarterback is, get him, start him day one. I don't want Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy or Drake May sitting behind Jarret Stidham or sitting behind Jameis Winston. Simplify the playbook a little bit for the rookie quarterback. Don't give him 600 plays to learn. Give him a few less plays to learn. Adapt to his style. If you get JJ McCarthy, I think that's Sean Payton's guy, in my opinion. Reminds me of Drew Brees. Or Jaden Daniels, which I think would be phenomenal too. And you would have to adjust a little bit your playbook, I think, with Jaden Daniels, but not too much. But both of those guys, like CJ Stroud, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, to name just a couple quarterbacks, start them day one. I think it'll make all of Bronco country happy.
I don't disagree. I mean, there's going to be growing pains, unfortunately, when you have the deepest pockets in ownership, there's going to be a way to build talent, your roster. There's going to be a way to get cap down and different things like that. So, I mean, with the cap implications, I mean, it's going to be some hurdles, but there's going to be a way to add some talent to put around that young quarterback still. May it be as great as once the money falls off? Probably not. But I mean, if you can get this guy a couple tools, like you said, make some adjustments. I've been high on JJ McCarthy for a few months now. I think you're absolutely right. I think he is the better fit for the Sean Payton offense, Kenny. Jaden Daniels, I think has a higher ceiling right now based off of how much growth he's had. But when we've seen it so many times, once you get to the NFL, you could be the greatest collegiate quarterback, but if you don't find a way to adjust to the game, you fizzle out, or you get put in the wrong situation, it fizzles out.
And that's the key right there. You got to be able to adjust. You have to have a coach that's going to work with you and get these younger guys and guide you, and get you. But I do like that approach, Kenny. You throw them to the wolves game one, and you just let them go and say, this is your team. Now you go out there and you run it for us, And who knows? You may get a CJ Stroud situation where your team at the end of the season is battling for a playoff spot in a division lead. We've seen Kansas City sort of come back to the pack a little bit, with the loss of talent and stuff that they've had. They had a nice run with a rookie off a rookie deal, and now they had to start paying people, and it's the way it happens. You start coming back to the pack a little bit, and so hopefully it's not too far out of reach, and we can have a youngster that's going to pump some excitement. And I agree, reunite Bronco country, because this has been crazy for the since Locke Bridgewater's when it really started,
Oh, we've been divided since,
Yeah. Locke Bridgewater's when it started.
It's in Giants country too, so it's all around the NFL. It's going to happen again.
And it does happen.
Because it's already starting the Russell Wilson talk over to the Giants, just so you guys know.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and just staying real quick on the thought of rookie quarterbacks, I think if the quarterbacks you're looking at, we've hit two of them. I think that's definitely two that are going to be on the list. And the last one, and you can call it a gut feeling, I think it's Bo Nix. I think his leadership style, I think the head on his shoulders fits well and meshes well with Sean Payton's personality. Mm-hmm. He's been adaptable. He's been through a couple different programs now, and he's adjusted well. And if you can get the physical deficiencies and some of the mechanical stuff and improve some decision making, I think that could also be another viable option for this Sean Payton offense. He's also one of the older quarterbacks in the draft class. He's had a couple more years or seasons under his belt as a collegiate starter. So that may also bode well with Sean Payton.
More maturity level. So
definitely. I think that's something to keep an eye on. There's a comment here that's coming up, Graham, if you want to pull it up, by Trevor here at it's the most recent one. Broncos are projected to be $18 million over the cap next season. Add in Russ's dead cap hit, and it'll likely limit what the Broncos can do in terms of building the roster. Broncos, even with Russell Wilson here, they were going to have to get creative with what they were going to do with the cap. I mean, $18 million is not the same as $70 million over the cap, or roughly 68. Depending on where you're looking at, we'll get the definitive numbers as we get closer to offseason. I think over the cap has us at 18 and Spot Track has us at 20 currently. So somewhere in that 68 to 70 million range is essentially what it would look like if the Broncos decided to do a pre-June 1st release because you would add the $50 million to this year. But there's a lot of contracts you can restructure. We were going to probably have to approach some of those players anyways. You have a couple key veteran pieces that if you want to have these guys come back, Garrett Bowles is heading into the final year. Justin Simmons is heading into the final year. You can always talk extensions there, drop base salary to vet minimum for those and drop your cap hit by about 14 to 16 million, depending on which player you want to pick at. There's definitely some other names that are likely not going to be here. Tim Patrick, DJ Jones, those guys are probably gone. That's 20 million there. So there's definitely ways that you can do it. Once again, Waltons have very deep pockets. You can, depending on which way you decide to go with this, either front load the Russell hit or back load it. You can do the opposite in terms of front and back loading contracts.
Well, and that's the thing when the Waltons, because I know the Waltons and had to be involved in this decision today to make this move and say we're done, we're moving on. They have to be committed to spending that money now, to changing these contracts and restructuring them, and more bonus money and things like that. So
yeah,
it can be done, and Matt laid it out, and there is a very good way to do it. I mean, it's not going to be the greatest, but you can still do it, and you can still manage it. And it's like you said, Matt,
you got to be hopeful.
Deep pockets, and you got to get creative. So, all right, I want to touch on something else really quick. The man who orchestrated this whole thing. Do you think this guy is safe here? Is he gone after the draft? And I'm talking about Mr. George Paton. He's the guy who orchestrated the trade for Russell Wilson. He is the guy who went to the Walton Penner Group and said, we need to sign him to this contract right now, which is turning out to be a financial disaster. Do you think he's gone, Matt? Kenny?
Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, Kenny. Let's let the guest go first.
I think he may stay. I don't know. Maybe. I look at it like when they hired Sean Payton, and I'd like to touch this a little later about Sean Payton, but when they hired Sean Payton, they hired Sean Payton. They knew what they were getting. You hired Sean Payton to work with Russell Wilson. It didn't work out. That's not George Payton's fault. You still got the coach that you hired. You hired a big coach. Okay, Russell Wilson didn't work out. We moved on. We still got Sean Payton. We're going to build this team around Sean Payton now. I'll sit with Sean, and we'll work on get the guys. I'm not a fan of it. Get Payton's guys, Sean Payton's guys, as opposed to George Payton. But I think Sean Payton's going to have a big say in everything that George Payton does.
And I agree.
I think George Payton stays. I think he stays one more year.
I think they sort of work well together. But I agree with what you just said, Kenny. Sean Payton's going to be calling the shots, I think Sean Payton's going to go to George Payton and say, this is what I want. You go out and you make it happen now, So, but I think Sean Payton may have final sign-off on some of these things. What do you think, Matt?
I don't think he's going to be here after the draft. What's one thing that we constantly hear of Sean Payton, and everyone too talks about Sean Payton in terms of roster construction?
That's true.
Sean Payton wants Sean Payton guys. And I think he's going to want the same thing with he's calling the shots. He walked into the Walter Penners and he said, this isn't working. This is not what I like. This is not, I feel like we've hit our ceiling with Russ and this is where it's at. There's also, you can point the proverbial finger at George Payton for orchestrating the trade, but ultimately you have to blame ownership for the mistake of signing off on the deal.
No, I agree, but to play devil's advocate right here, I'm going to say these guys were so young. They were new to the football world, and they relied on the judgment of George Payton.
Well, of course.
That sold them on this deal. So I'm going to lay a lot of this blame on George Payton.
Absolutely.
So.
And I know they might work well together, but it's the same thing when you talk about a coach who's inheriting a quarterback. When you've gotten George Payton is essentially kind of in this hybrid role, like we've said. He's calling the shots in terms of roster construction. He's going to want to find a guy that he trusts to be that talent evaluator. And I think that he wants, while George Payton's good at that, that's just not his guy. And I think he's going to want to move on to get some, his own guy. Two names that are also being thrown around already early, Jeff Ireland and Ryan Pace. Both have strong connections to Sean Payton.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of orchestrates itself. But I mean, at the end of the day, regardless, it's Sean Payton calling those shots.
Yeah. And Mike Kliss from 9 News today, I was listening to him earlier, and he said he expects George Payton to be here through the draft, and to go along with what Kenny says, would not be surprised to see him stick around as more of a scouting guy because of his skills and his ability as a scouting guy. And Sean Payton guy would maybe,
I mean, it could be something as simple as, hey, we'll let you take over as you taking over our scouting department, and they bring in somebody else to work or be that oversight, changes up the chain of command. But I honestly think George Payton is well respected enough in this league that the Broncos may just grant him the opportunity, like, hey, this is what we have for you. If you want to go somewhere else, we're not going to stop you. Take your pick. Go. You want to go do those interviews and see what comes your way? That's fine.
Right.
See, I honestly think it's Sean Payton writing the list of 10 guys each position. These are the top 10 guys I like. And George Payton looks at it, and then he interviews the guys, but they already know who they're picking in the draft. That's why I think George Payton stays, and he's the guy behind the scenes, how you want to call it, scout. Payton's mate. George is the what's the right word I'm looking for? The puppet for Sean, in my opinion. George is going to be the puppet for Sean this upcoming draft. That's why I think he stays.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's just too short of a time frame between you got free agency, then you got the draft and everything else. You just can't let a George Payton go right then.
He likely won't. It would be after
maybe August.
Yeah, it would be after
is when they would let him go. Sometime around there. So,
and in my opinion, I think this is what Sean Payton wants. He wants the control eventually, and he's getting it now, but nobody's saying it on paper.
I think these are all things that were discussed before he even took the job. One Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson does not pan out, I want the authority to move on from him. So I'm sure the Pinner Group had to sign off on that and say, yeah, okay, you know what? I want my own GM. We'll keep George through a certain point, and then after that, I want to bring in my guy. And things like that. And I think these are things, and I think Denver got to a point where they were so desperate for a head coach that Sean Payton knew it. He pretty much could make almost all the demands he wanted. Jim Harbaugh didn't work out. I mean, John Harbaugh, John. Which one? I'm confused, guys.
Jim.
Jim Harbaugh didn't work out. Ryan's didn't work out. I don't think Sean Payton was their top choice in this whole thing. I think Dan Quinn may have even been ahead of Sean Payton. And I think it just got to the point where the Broncos got turned down. And I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get crucified for saying this. I think Russell Wilson was a huge deterrent to a lot of these people. And they all were turning her down. And I think ownership still had faith in Russell Wilson, said, no, we're going to commit to this guy. We just signed him to this contract. And they got to a point where they needed to hire a coach and they wanted to splash. They go to Sean Payton, and Sean Payton laid out his list of demands. And I think they just got to a point where they didn't have any choice anymore. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on this coaching hire fiasco that we
I just wanted to interject, if you don't mind, just about Sean Payton, why I dislike him. Okay.
Okay.
All joking aside, it's the longest of shots, but you're still alive for the playoffs, and you're still alive for the division. The Bengals have a chance of beating the Chiefs this week. They really do, even with their quarterback, the way the Chiefs are playing.
Oh, I agree.
And then if the Broncos take care of business this week, Week 18 gets fun for Bronco fans again. I think in Week 17, Sean Payton gave up on the team by benching Russ this late. You want to move on from him, end the season, I'm all about it. You lose this week, Week 18, and you're completely out of it with zero chance, I'm all about it. But doing it this week showed me that he gave up on the team, in my opinion. I know you guys may disagree, but to week 17, I think personally, Russell Wilson gives me a better chance of winning week 17 than Jarret Stidham. Whether in the offseason next year, that's completely different, week 1. But right now, week 17, I think you have a better chance with Russ winning than Stidham. That's just my opinion. And Sean Payton, I think, gave up on the Broncos. That's how I feel about him. He quit on the Saints, in my opinion, after a mediocre last season when Drew Brees
mediocre.
Quit.
They were 9-8. I mean, come on. You're going to have a fall off after your Hall of Fame.
I think it's more of the cap issue. I think that
right. It was the cap issue that he left.
Well, that's the hole that him and his GM buried.
Right.
I know, but again, is he going to do that with the Broncos?
That's what I'm worried about. That's my concern. That is one of my concerns.
And then giving up a first and second round pick for this guy. Draft capital is very important to you and me. I believe in draft capital, and giving up those picks for a coach, I don't care who it is, I wouldn't do it. And Broncos shouldn't have done that. That's as bad as a move as the Russell Wilson deal, in my opinion. Giving up draft picks, valuable draft picks on a team that wasn't near a Super Bowl at the time.
And I did hear this, Keith. And I did hear this press conference that Keith is referring to, and Sean Payton did say this was his call, but I mean, I would expect him to stand up there and say, this is his call. I mean, when this first broke, Ian Rappaport came out and said, and Ian Rappaport is fairly well connected. He said this was for financial flexibility for next year. This wasn't because we're trying to spark our offense, But then, it's sort of, something was said. Now Ian Rappaport and everyone's trying to backpedal a little bit. But Ian Rappaport is too much of a pro, and he's too well connected to come out and say that it was a financial decision. And then, all of a sudden, no, it's not. So,
And
after Matt, if I could just say one more thing. After
you're good. Yeah, real quick. Going back. Oh, go ahead, Kenny. Go. You first.
Yeah, let Kenny go because he has to run here in a minute. So
I was just going to say, Dave, you have an amazing product, Willow Seasonings. I love it. I use it all the time. If Jarret Stidham outperforms, and I mean outperforms, I think Jarret Stidham is going to put up similar numbers than Russ in these final 2 games. I do. If he outperforms Russell Wilson these final 2 games, I'll find Crow and sprinkle some of your amazing seasonings, Dave, and eat it on your show. If he plays really bad in these final 2 games and the Bengals end up beating the Chiefs, then I'm blaming Sean Payton on giving up on the Broncos if Stidham fails the final 2 games. I think it's going to be similar numbers. I really do.
I do too. I actually think you're going to see a different
right around the same numbers, I think. I don't see you're going to see much of a difference.
The offense will open up a little bit more. Because I think Stidham's more of a pocket guy than Russ is, and I think that's where this offense of Payton's needs to be run from, is primarily out of the pocket. And we've seen Russ will, and I don't want to turn this into a Rush bashing.
No, I'm not turning it into a Russ
scenario, and I don't,
I don't want anybody thinking that.
I don't want to bash Payton. I don't want to bash Russ. We're at a crossroads now, and now we're trying to figure out how we're going forward, And like when you first came on, Kenny, how does Bronco Country reunite? How do they all come back together and all love where we're going, Because there has been division. Like me and Matt said, it started with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. That's when the division in Bronco Country started. And it's continued, And now we need to get to a point where we're just all a happy fan base again, and we're marching forward. So,
man, you're talking about, what is it, Utopia over there, perfect world?
Right.
I don't know if we'll ever get there, Broncos country, but hey, we're going to sell you on it.
Yeah, but hey, Kenny,
quarterback that can be your franchise guy, first round, get that guy. Whether it's McCarthy, Daniels, Drake May, if you got to move up, You want to move up if you feel Bo Nix is your guy, take him early. Whoever your guy is, Sean Payton, you take him. And if you got to move up a couple spots, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I think J.J. McCarthy fits the Broncos formula. Jaden Daniels, if that's your guy and can fit your formula and you feel you can work with him, go after him because I think he's got a higher ceiling than J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah. So, all right, Kenny, hey, we know you got to run. Tell Kurt over there we send our condolences.
I will.
Thanks for joining us. And
I appreciate you guys.
We'll try to catch some of Kurt's Bronco show after we're done here. So, but we appreciate you coming on.
Maybe around Friday, I'll get in touch with you, Dave, about your variety show Friday.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
I look forward to it. Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, let me ask you a question now because Kenny brought up a point. Go get your guy, and get your guy and make him your guy from day one. I like that approach. I think it's a good approach to just get everybody moving in the same direction again. Here's my question. If you got to move up, right now we're at 14. Let's say we finish between 8 and 14 right now where we're at with our draft status, and you have to move up. Is PS2 the guy you have to trade to get the resources to move up? And do you do it if you're the GM, Matt?
I don't see. This is where I'm stuck. I'm conflicted because there's only one guy that I'm moving up for. Because if we're being honest,
okay, who are you moving up for? Tell me that.
Yeah,
Matt.
There's only one quarterback that's going to fall in that range, and it's Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
And right now, we're having to ask ourselves, where does Jaden Daniels truly fall? Depending on where you look, he's falling some as early as the top 5, but he never makes it past 8 or 9.
Right.
So now we're talking, is Jaden Daniels worth sacrificing multiple years of draft picks, a guy whose talent is likely perennial Pro Bowler, shutdown corner? He's still young and makes mistakes, but is it worth it at that point? I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to say Jaden Daniels is worth sacrificing the farm to move up 4 picks. I don't know. If projections are right and he's continuing to trend up, now we're talking about going, like you said, going from, let's just say 12 is the magic number,
right?
From 12 to 14 all the way to 4 or 5. And I just don't think that would be worth it. I think you're putting yourself behind the cuff because you're having to overcome some of these cap issues already. So, unless you absolutely love Jaden Daniels, you feel that this guy is Patrick Mahomes level or to that extent, superstar level, and you have to truly believe in it. And you're putting all of your eggs in a basket if you're doing this. I just don't see that being a reality. Now, let's say post-combine, Jaden Daniels has fallen into that 10 to 12, 10 to 13 range. Are you maybe moving up a pick to make sure that someone doesn't jump you to get him? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's not going to cost you an arm, a leg, and a left kidney.
Right.
And I think if they had any interest in trading PS2, they would have done it before they were desperate. Now with all this news breaking, they're desperate to fix the quarterback position.
Right. And the reason I ask is because there have been some tweets during the season from PS2's dad, about how Denver has no talent around him, how he's just wasting his time here, and PS2 liked those tweets. So is PS2 really happy? Does PS2 want to stay here? So is it to the point where you guys start looking at it and say, is this guy going to be here long term, or do we need to get what we can out of the guy now?
You have him for a few. He's on a rookie contract with the fifth.
Right.
You have a chance of a 5th-year option. He's locked down here for this entire rebuild. Yeah, if you want him to be, he doesn't got a choice. Now after 5 years.
But do you really want a disgruntled guy around here, though?
How disgruntled is he? He's getting.
And he doesn't portray himself. I'm just saying the things that have come out about his dad, and now,
and now
if this team's going to take a step backwards, and not win. I mean, this guy played at Alabama where all they did was win, and now he's on a team where he's losing, So
But I mean,
can he handle that mentally?
I just don't know. I mean, the way that the NFL has changed so much, rebuilds don't take 4 seasons like they used to.
That is true. That
I
is
mean,
true. You can
Houston
do it
Texans.
quick.
Yeah, I mean, the Houston Texans, given me they had some additional resources to make this happen. But I mean, they went from worst to first. I mean, we're trending towards being from worst to first. I mean, even with not having CJ Stroud for 2 weeks now, I mean, they're still in contention for the South. I mean, rebuilds are happening at an expedited rate. I mean, look at the Jaguars, same thing. I mean, it's another great team to see how fast they went from completely terrible. I mean, even with Trevor
No,
Lawrence,
and
Trevor
it
Lawrence
can happen.
struggled. Trevor Lawrence struggled his first year, and then you got the right coach, you got the right pieces, you keep adding. I mean, these guys had a couple of benefits in terms of resources. Do I think that it is going to just click on and we're going to be able to do this? No, but I mean, there is a chance that this could rebuild really quickly. And if PS2, he liked a couple of tweets from his dad. I mean, if my dad was complaining about my job and showing up my back, maybe I would like it too. It could be something as harmless as anything.
Yeah, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. So
yeah, I mean, we get stuck in this world of social media, and sometimes it's easy to read into it. Sometimes it's minuscule. Sometimes there's a bigger story behind it. But I think if the Broncos truly had interest in moving on from some of these key pieces, I think this also somewhat slightly changes your perspective on why they kept Jerry Jeudy. I think they wanted to give this guy, now we've talked about it, he's here for next year. His 5th-year option was picked up. Do you want to see what he looks like with a different quarterback, a different scheme, a guy that's going to get him maybe a better chemistry? Unfortunately, I mean, Jerry Jeudy has not lived up to the potential in any means, but I mean,
no, and this weekend,
it's been a rocky roller coaster in terms of who's throwing him the ball.
And this weekend, he gets his first dose of Stidham because he's going to be WR1. I don't know if Cortland Sutton's going to be cleared, to play from his concussion. So,
yeah,
Judy's going to have to step up and be the man. So, do we see more of the tight ends involved, things like that? More of I'm sort of confused by these tweets or these comments by Left Twix, but we'll just leave those out there. So,
but anyways,
I'm just wondering, circling back, some guys are going to get a chance to showcase their talents over the next 2 weeks.
And now the Broncos have taken off that, going back to kind of what Kenny said, did Sean Payton pull the plug on this too early? I don't think so. I mean, I think, the odds are less than 10% for either option or either way to make the playoffs. I mean, I believe it's below 4% right now for the Broncos to even have a chance to make the playoffs. Could a few things are domino? It would take a miracle ending of everything going right. I mean, so could he have, or did this finally, we talked about, if we look at some of the reports from Jordan Schultz and some of these other, Diana Rossini, all of them, they talked about this has been an 8-week process, and you're not going to pull a quarterback when you're in the middle of a win streak and you do have playoffs up lives, regardless of this. Or how long did it take for the teams to finally just kind of go back and forth on these negotiations? How long was this stuff drawn out? Did it just get slammed shut right before the New England game? We don't have that information. We probably never will have that information on when the book was finally slammed shut, that neither side of this was budging. And maybe it's just a timing thing. But this, Sean Payton did say, hey, I'm going to live and die by this. This is what I don't feel this is it. This offense has been this is not verbatim. Essentially, he called it boring, stagnant, not exciting, no spark. And he obviously feels that this kid's going to come in and maybe change that. We'll see. But now, instead of playoff contender hat, you have your talent and valuation hat on. And a lot of these guys are going to be under a microscope. The offensive line primarily, I think, is going to be under a microscope, because we're going to be able to see, was this a Russell Wilson issue for terms of sacks? Was it because the offense was one-dimensional? Was it because the best part to protect Russell Wilson was the run game? we got to see how all of that changes moving forward. I think there's a couple guys you're going to have to keep an eye on there. Do maybe we see maybe a Luke Wattenberg or an Alex Forsythe maybe get some additional reps working with Stidham? That's the center they work with. Nothing against Lloyd Cushenberry, but we're talking about cap implications. Is he likely priced out of our range? Do we got to see what this is going to look like for next year? So it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments are made as we move forward these next 2 weeks.
Right. No, I agree. It'll be interesting to see the way things go, the way Stidham plays. I agree with Kenny. The timing is a little, a little obscure, like I talked about. We still technically have a shot at a playoff berth. I mean, albeit very small. But and maybe that's where they just said, enough is enough. We're not going to make it. And these last 3 weeks, has just shown us that this is not a playoff caliber team, or something blew up between Peyton and Wilson Monday or Tuesday.
Or what if what if with all of the reports and all the frustration that's already there, maybe it is as simple as, hey, we needed a spark. Maybe that is what the message is to the team. We needed a spark. Our shot's not dead, but we haven't been able to get it right the way we've done it. We've, banged our head against the wall so many times. We need to change something. And he said it well. I can't change I can't get you a whole new offensive line and 5 new receivers and a running back, but I can make some changes.
Right.
And it lives and dies with your nucleus, and that's your quarterback.
Right. And maybe that is it, and we'll see. I think the offense will look a little different because, like I said, I think Stidham can operate a little better out of the pocket, He's a little taller than Russell Wilson. He can see the field a little better. I don't think I think he'll progress through his reads a little bit more as well. I don't think he's going to be, like Russ, who just seemed like a one-read guy, and then it would be, bail out of the pocket or break the play down or hit your check down guy or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see the way it plays. So
yeah, and left Twix brings up a couple things here really quick. Peyton left the Saints in cap hole, absolutely did, and he did leave. When they were, I believe, it was $98 million in the hole.
Right. Well, and good thing is he's not the GM here, and he doesn't have control of the GM right now. It's not like him and his buddy as it was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing that is different, you do have. Regardless of how we want to look at this, the Walton Penner group combined, I think after I did the calculations, we're talking almost $80 billion combined with this group.
Right.
They have the deepest pockets by a not even close margin. Yeah, people say we don't become a billionaire by spending money, but you got to spend money to make money at the same time. So there's money, I don't believe, will be an issue. I think it's going to have some implications on how the first year, depending on which direction they take in terms of when they do move on. Do they do post first or June 1st? Do they do it pre? There's going to be so many different capital implications of that, but they're going to be somewhat manageable. It's not ideal in any means, but there is ways around it. It's just is what it is. And then the other one is, did we watch the preseason? Did you watch the preseason? Absolutely. And Stidham was shaky. Russ was shaky. It did not get off to a great start for any quarterback, unfortunately. But the final game Jarret Stidham had with the Los Angeles Rams was was a very fluid, very organized game plan. He came in, he enacted it, he protected himself. The offensive line looked decent. This is the second and third stringers. Let's be real. It's preseason. We can't take it too much. But in terms of running a system, it may have been the most efficient we had in terms of a game plan this season. That might be the number one in terms of efficiency. So we'll have to go back and we'll have to look. But we'll see where this goes moving forward with Jarret Stidham in the next 2 weeks. Is this a long-term solution? Is this a stopgap? Either way, Sean Payton has taken the credit and said, this is my decision. This is what we're doing. And unfortunately, here we are again, left misguided without an identity, and unfortunately likely looking for a quarterback yet another season over this post Super Bowl 50 drought.
Yeah, we definitely are. So it's going to be a lot developing, over the next couple of weeks and then through the off season. So it's going to be a lot of stuff flying around. So appreciate you, Matt, jumping on short notice tonight. So appreciate everybody that stopped by, throughout your comments. As this person says, haters got their way. I don't think this was the haters. And this is what we need to get away from as a Bronco fan base. Get away from the haters, get away from the Russ cultists, and let's be Bronco fans again, and let's support this team as a whole. So the division is getting old and tiring.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, sometimes it's just not a good fit. Sometimes personalities don't mesh well, and
they don't, or it's just not a fit for this system.
Yeah,
so
did Peyton come in?
It happens. It happens.
And Peyton, and nothing against Sean Payton, but he is like I said earlier, he's very not egotistical is a strong word, but he's very set in his ways. He is a stubborn man, and he likes what he likes, and he doesn't defer from it. And maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe we simply started off as they started off on the wrong foot, and it just never transpired.
Yeah, a lot of people have taken this way too personal, is all I will say. It has become personal with a lot of people, and all I'm going to say now is done. Pick yourself up, wipe the dust off, and let's go.
See where it goes.
Let's get together as a Bronco fan base again. Let's cheer on Jarret Stidham. He's our guy for the next 2 weeks. Let's see where it goes, and we'll see what happens in the offseason.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And I mean, maybe there's going to be some excitement this offseason of us going after some young stud quarterback. And right now, I think we're all a little bit aghast. I think that's the word. We're all shocked and surprised by how this day has turned out. So there's going to be some time for reflection.
I was shocked. It came down today. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought we were just going to ride the season out, and then we would see, what the decision was. But I mean, it's time now. Let's just move on, guys. And if you can't let it go, you might want to seek some help.
It's time for reflection and healing. I mean, unfortunately, Broncos country, we're with you. We've been in reflection and healing for several consecutive seasons. Like I said, all the way back to post Super Bowl 50. So here we are again, time to do some reflection and some healing, and hope that the decision makers now with this new era of Broncos football in terms of Walton Penner Group, Sean Payton, maybe George Payton, maybe somebody else. We'll see where those cards fall. It's time to hopefully put our trust in them that will get us back to the winning ways of what we've known Broncos country to be.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Hey, stay tuned to Colorado Sports Connection for your breaking news. We'll be covering this more as we get more information. We'll put it out on the Facebook page, so just check us out. I will be back Friday morning for the variety show. I'm sure it probably won't be much variety, and it'll be mostly what the Broncos are doing and things like that. Jerry Murr, who used to be with us when we were with RMSN, will be on the show with me on Friday, and I think Kenny from K&K Sports may make an appearance on Friday as well. So, but again, we thank you all. Hey, let's move forward, Bronco country. It's time to let it go, and let's march forward, and let's support Jarret Stidham now, because he is the man now. All right, everybody, have a good evening. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.